Today, we're going to be talking about the Sig Spear LT chambered in 300 blackout. Before we get into it, I did buy all of this with my own money, and I have no relationship with Sig or any of the companies that make parts for this thing. So you guys know Sig and the Spears, it's nothing new. You guys know them, you love them. However, this is my first Sig and my first Spear. I've shot them a couple times here and there. But that being said, what has the experience been? Well, it's been great. Let's talk about shootability on this thing. So, shootability is fantastic. I mean, you guys already know Sig makes a solid rifle, and their Spear LT and 300 blackout is absolutely no exception to it. This is a 9-inch barrel, piston operated. I believe it's a short stroke gas piston operated system, which, fun fact, this is my first piston operated gun. I have, until this point, been nothing but a DI guy. But this thing shoots phenomenally well. It's very snappy, it's very crisp, it's been extremely reliable. I'm sitting at around the 800 or so round mark with this thing, and I have had absolutely zero hiccups. Now, another thing you might be familiar with is the 2-position adjustable gas block. So you pretty much just get to choose more gas or less gas. In my case, shooting subs, the S&B and the Fort Scott 300 blackout subs that I shoot, I found that I have to use the more gas position to get it to cycle correctly. When it comes to supersonics, however, the thing cycles flawlessly on the lower gas setting. It kicks a little bit harder, obviously, on the plus setting for gas, but it runs beautifully. Alright, so for a build breakdown, starting in the back, we have a SBA-3 tactical pistol brace. Moving forward, we have a Die Frico Kung Fu grip with their newly released extension. This grip I really like, however, I'm still in the experimental phase with it. I have a little bit bigger hands, and the indentation here for your middle finger, it goes in pretty far, so I'm not quite sure. I prefer something like the B5 Systems grips, where it just feels a little bit wider. But I do like their product. It's a quality product. It feels good. The stippling on it is fantastic. But I'm still experimenting with this grip. So, moving forward, we have a Magpul Industries, their iron, or their whatever, metal flip-up iron sight for the rear. I am soon to be replacing it with a Scalarworks. Speaking of, I have a front Scalarworks flip-up iron sight. This thing is phenomenal. Like, everything Scalarworks does and touches just comes out like mechanically immaculate, in my opinion. Optic. For the optic, I am running the
What this idiot meant to say was the EOTech EXPS 3-1.
That is the single dot reticle from EOTech.
No shit.
Moving forward, we have rail scales. It's very similar to all my other builds, so forgive the redundancy, but rail scales, this is their matrix pattern, B5 Systems vertical foregrip that is indeed chopped. And then we have a Mod Light. This is their PLH V2. And I went away with the pressure pad, if you come on in here. So, same as on my other 300 blackout here, I'm trying it out to see, you know, you hear all the super cool tactical high-speed guys talk about negligent discharge of your flashlight. So, I'm trying this out. This is just a temporary press and a click for constant on. The Mod Light here is sitting on an Arasaka flashlight mount, and then for a suppressor, I am running my Cat JL with a direct thread mount. I did forget to mention, so this was purchased as a pistol, I believe, and I don't think it came with a stock. So I went ahead and got the receiver extension, buffer tube assembly, the little folder from...
The low IQ strikes again as he attempts to close the stock before realizing...
Gotta press the button. It shows how often I fold it. This is the receiver extension, buffer tube, whatever, 1913 pick rail adapter from Sig. I don't really fold it, as you can quite see, very often, because for the most part my guns stay on the rack, or I throw them in the truck and I don't necessarily have a need to fold them. but I did go ahead and replace that, and when I SBR this thing, I am going to put a full stock on here and get rid of this brace. Now that covers the build breakdown. Let's talk about build quality, specifically in regards to the SIG itself and not the attachments. I mean, it's a SIG, man. This thing is solid. It feels solid in your hands. It feels great. It feels very well built. It's not too heavy. I really don't mind it. If I were to shoot it in the ATF's proposed manner, I don't know if I could do it for very long, but I could definitely do it. Contrary to anything that touches Tommy Built's hands, this thing is an absolute unit. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I'm sitting at about the 800 or so round count, and this thing has been nothing but reliable. I can throw any, in fact, I did throw a bunch of leftover Hornady subsonics through this thing with a ton of different, like, hollow points and all sorts of stuff that had difficulty actually cycling in my nights due to the feed ramps. But this thing here ate it up. Obviously, SIG has a very good reputation for reliability, with the exception of some of their pistols and the internet clout that has brought. But this thing is extremely reliable, or has been, at least to me. You can cycle through, being that it's a piston system with the immediate adjustability, you can pretty quickly just swap the gas system over to plus or minus. But even if you kept it in the plus position, you could have one mag that is a mix of subs and supers, and I would see absolutely no problem running that. I have had absolutely zero malfunctions with this thing, even though I've thrown all the ammo at it that I possibly could find, and it's just ate it up. All right, let's talk about my likes and my dislikes with this thing. So my likes, first off, is it shoots amazing. It's very easy to control. It's very light recoiling. Light, but still snappy. I had no problem printing very small groupings on the targets here when we are shooting our little clips. But yeah, to touch on that, so it's light recoiling, but it's snappy. So with something typically like the S&B 300 Blackout Subsonics, my Knights over here, because of the buffer and the spring assembly that I have in here, it runs a little bit slower because the S&B is a slower cycling round, if you will. But in this thing, it is very quick. I don't know how else to explain it, because the recoil impulse is not strong. It's very light, but it's snappy. That's the best way I could describe it. It's very quick. I feel like I can print my follow-up shots very easily, very quickly with this thing. So basically, my likes are looks, functions, and everything in between. Now, for my dislikes, obviously these are things that I can change. Well, some of them are things that I can change. My dislikes, I'm not really the biggest fan of this trigger. It's good, it's very good for a factory trigger, but I probably just have a personal preference to Geisley's triggers. The charging handle, I'm not a big fan of. I like something like a Radian Raptor SD charging handle. If you come in here, it has just the smallest amount of more material on it that's easier to grab for my big lanky wonky hands. That's something I can change. Another big dislike with this thing is the bolt release and lock on the right side of the gun. I prefer something like, obviously this is an AR-15, but something like your regular old paddle. If you come in here, it's big, it's easy to hit, right? I lift my finger up and it's more intuitive for me to press inward than reach my finger up and have to press down, which is what I have to do here on the SIG. So to catch it and go like this, I almost have to break my grip. Now, furthermore, it could be said about the lock back. When you lock it back, right, you kind of have to pull the bolt to the rear and then push up. On something like the Radian, where they have the bolt lock back attached here to the mag release, you can push it and ride it and it locks back just fine. It pushes back a little bit on your finger, but not nearly as much. Now, when I do that with the SIG, it wants to kick back and I pinch my finger in there a couple times doing it. It's really not that bad, and I don't know what aftermarket options are out there for replacing it, but I'm not personally a big fan of it. It feels more intuitive to just press I almost had to break my grip, like I said, to push down. Now this could just be the fact that I'm not entirely used to it, but that's just personal preference. Now, like I mentioned, this is my first piston gun. Another thing that I like specifically about the piston system is, at least with the rounds, or the round count that I'm at, it seems to stay much cleaner than something like your DI gun. I would say somewhere around the 60-ish round mark, you'll start to see a lot of soot and a lot of carbon and a lot of buildup on the bolt carrier of something from a DI gun. Whereas the Sig, I would say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of closer to 200 to 300 rounds or so, at least in my experience. So the system itself runs much cleaner. I can put lube on it and it's not blowing back and just completely blowing it out of the carrier. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching and enjoying this. I do have a lot more content planned here in the near future. I have some pretty cool suppressor comparison videos, but I wanted to hop in there and give this thing a little bit of a spotlight and show you guys my setup here. The only thing, like I mentioned, that I will be changing in the future is when I SBR it, I'll be tossing on an actual stock here. But that's it. So thank you so much for watching. Catch us on the next one.